Thank you for joining us today here at LifePath for a session, a community learning session. This is a new set of learning trainings that we're going to be offering here at LifePath on various topics of interest to the community, especially to older people, people with disabilities, and caregivers. In this first session, we're excited to present Avoiding Fraud in the New Year. And today we're going to hear from some experts in the field. Our own Dean Lagrotteria, LifePath's Elder Protective Services Regional Director. And Dean is going to share with us how we can know what financial exploitation is, how to avoid it, and how to report it if you suspect it. And then we're also going to hear from Anita Wilson, the Consumer Protection Case Coordinator at the Northwestern District Attorney's Office. And she's going to explain how to recognize the tricks scammers use to steal your money or your personal information. And her colleague, Rachel Senecal, is also going to present some information that you're going to find relevant. My name is Lynn Feldman. I'm the Director of Community Services here at LifePath. I'm just delighted to welcome you here today. And at this point, I will introduce Dean Lagrotteria. Dean.
Great. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Dean Lagrotteria. Like Lynn said, I am the Protective Service Program Director. At LifePath for Protective Services, we cover the Berkshires, we cover Franklin County, and North Quabbin. Protective Services investigates allegations or concerns regarding abuse, neglect, exploitation, and self-neglect in the community for people 60 and over. But today I'm here to talk to you about exploitation only from a protective service perspective. So it is a nationally recognized concern. There's not a community in this country that this is not impacting. More than $2.5 billion annually is taken from elders in the community. And the impact can often be severe. It's often irreversible. A lot of times when the money is taken, it's gone. And little monies can be recovered because most of the people who are exploiting these elders don't have money of their own. They usually take it and spend it on whatever things they do. So once the money's taken, very rarely can we actually recover any of the money. And that's why prevention is critical. We have to stop it before it happens to prevent the further loss for the elders. But from a PS perspective, exploitation is when money gets stolen. But as defined by law, it is a non-accidental act or omission by another without the consent of the elder that causes a monetary or property loss to that elder, that causes a benefit to another that would normally benefit the elder, or where another person gained control of money or property without the elder's consent. So if an elder is supporting a son in the home, and they're fully capable of consenting to that, free of undue influence, we would not consider that exploitation. It's when there's some sort of coercion or pressure to support a person that might be considered exploitation from a protective service perspective. So exploitation typically from a protective service perspective can be done through two means. One would be fraud, which is obtaining money or property via or control via deceit, trickery, or breach of confidence. And it must be done also for profit or gain or some unfair or disadvantage to another person. It doesn't necessarily have to include profit, but it can also include, like I said, an unfair gain. So think of a son who might be obtaining power of attorney to exclude the other children from participating in inheritance or gifts from the elder. That could be considered exploitation. The second type of way an elder can be exploited is through undue influence. And that is defined as the deprivation of an elder's independent judgment and the substitution of another person's objectives for those of the elder using excessive insistence, mental or physical domination, or pressure applied based on authority, position, or relationship. So when you think about a daughter who might be saying, unless you give me money to buy a car, you're never going to see your grandchildren again. The elder might be willingly giving that money to the granddaughter, but the elder doesn't feel as though she can refuse because she'll never see her grandchildren again, and if that's important to her, that would be considered undue influence. So when we talk about exploitation in protective services, we talk about two types of exploiters. One is known to the elder, and the other would not be known to the elder. So typically, protective services will only investigate allegations of exploitation when they're known to the elder. And when we think of that, we think of people like family, friends, neighbors, acquaintances, or fiduciaries, a conservator or power of attorney, something along those lines. When the suspect is known to the elder, we typically think that the exploitation takes these forms. Typically, an exploiter will misappropriate the income or assets of an elder, outright theft. They might mismanage the income or assets, which would cause a loss to the elder. It doesn't have to be a gain to them, but if the mismanagement is so severe the elder loses money, that would be considered exploitation from our perspective. Or obtain money or property through threats, undue influence, misrepresentation, or fraud. Or the improper or fraudulent use of a power of attorney. Also, signing documents without the elder's consent. So basically, that would be fraud as well. So when a suspect is not known to the elder, this is not something protective services will investigate. That typically would be the people over here, the DA. But I'll just give you a list of the types of perpetrators, the type of things that are out there for people who are not known to our elders. A perpetrator will often target elders because, in many circumstances, their characteristics themselves make them more vulnerable. A perpetrator will prey upon a particular situation or life crisis. For example, somebody is suddenly sent to the hospital and they no longer have control over their own assets. Somebody has access to their apartment, their checkbook, their ATM card, things of that nature. Or, for example, an elder loses a spouse who typically might have managed the finances in the past. You now have somebody stepping in saying, "I'll help," and they take that advantage to exploit the elder and take money from them. We also have complex scenarios as processing complex information takes longer. So typically, if somebody is not used to managing their finances and do not have experience managing them, it can take more time to understand complex financial scenarios. So if an elder is relying upon somebody else to advise them or guide them because they don't quite understand the situation, and the situation might be complex. For example, some elders who might need to spend down to become eligible for certain programs, somebody could take advantage of that situation and exploit the elder. Manipulation would be another thing that would lead somebody to vulnerability. Often a perpetrator will manipulate or guilt an elder to obtain money. In protective services, we see family members who blame the elder for their own life situation. They might not have a good job, they might be chronically unemployed, they might blame mom and dad feel guilty and want to continue to support them because of that guilt. Or simply old-fashioned ideas about responsibility. A lot of people I know, my father-in-law for one, feels it's his responsibility to care for his family. No matter how old they are, no matter what they do in their lives, they feel it's their responsibility, and people often take advantage of that idea of responsibility. So some things to look out for, warning signs you can all look for when you come across your clients, or people might be involved with, or even yourselves, or people within your family. One we typically look at in protective services is when financial activity is inconsistent with their normal, usual patterns. Unusual changes in transactions, patterns of withdrawals. They increase in amounts and frequency. An elder who might be homebound, all of a sudden they start having ATM withdrawals. That's typically not something you would see from a homebound elder. So we would be concerned about that. And that would be something that would be a red flag to us that something's going on. Third-party involvement. The elders typically come to the bank by themselves or they live alone. All of a sudden somebody's moved into the home and has assumed control of their finances. Or they would go to the bank teller inside on a regular basis. Now they're going through the drive-through with an unknown person. Those are all red flags we want to look at for possible signs of exploitation. And also we have concerns regarding the elder themselves. The elder might have a lack of knowledge about their banking. They might be confused about their banking. They might all of a sudden have withdrawals that they're not aware of. Elder may not be receiving financial information. Sometimes we'll see that all of a sudden the bank statements are no longer going to the elder's home, they're going to a third party's home, a daughter who decided it's her responsibility to assume control of the elder's finances. Confusion. When you have cognitive decline in an elder, often you'll see elders coming confused into the bank, not really knowing why they're coming, maybe coming in every day to check on their bank balance. That's a red flag we want to think about when we're concerned about exploitation. Implausible explanations. We had a case recently in the Berkshires where the elder's daughter was telling the elder, I have co-pays of thousands of dollars each month for medical expenses, so it's your responsibility to help me with my medical problems. Turns out this daughter has mass health, and it's not likely she would have any co-pays at all. And the elder was believing this, so that basically, even though she was giving the money willingly, she believed her daughter's statement, which rendered the elder inability to make that informed decision we think about in terms of being able to decide to give money to somebody. You'll see an elder with all of a sudden a lack of food. They get SNAP benefits of $125 a month, but all of a sudden there's no more food in the house. Or they look malnourished. So you know this elder should be able to afford food. She afforded food 4 or 5 months ago. Nothing else has really changed. What's going on here? Why all of a sudden can they not afford food? Again, unable to pay for medications when in the past they've been able to. Another warning sign is a new person moves in with the elder, like I said before. The elder comes into the bank or expresses to you fear or anxiety about being able to pay bills when they've never had that problem before. And body language or verbal cues. We'll see a lot of times elders will go through the drive-through. Again, where typically they would go through the teller. They don't look at the teller in the drive-through. They just kind of look forward and don't speak very often and speak infrequently about why they're there. So early detection is very important in terms of trying to stop exploitation. So like I said earlier, there's a lot of serious impacts from exploitation. The money typically disappears quickly. A lot of times by the time we get the report into protective services, thousands of dollars have already gone out of their checking account before the bank will call us. We need to stop that financial bleeding. So as the money decreases, we need to stop that as soon as possible because the impacts to this elder will be severe if they lose a great amount of money in a short period of time. And many cases are not prosecuted. Some are, but there are some reasons why they can't be prosecuted. In protective services, we get a lot of times where a daughter's stealing money from the elder, but the daughter's on the bank account. So if the daughter's in the bank account, typically it's considered their money as well, and it's very difficult, if not impossible, to prosecute that. From a protective service perspective, we can intervene in certain ways that can stop that particular bleed, even though it can't be prosecuted. And again, very little money is recovered. Typically, once the money's gone, it's gone, and it can't be recovered. And there could be potentially devastating consequences from that loss. And so I'll talk a little bit about the impact of that loss of money. There can be physical impacts to the elder. If all of a sudden their income drops by $1,000 a month or their savings is gone, they may no longer be able to afford food, medical care, medications, pay for co-pays on their insurance or even the deductibles or anything of that nature. Home-based services, where they might be in need of home-based services to pay for care at home, they can no longer care for it because the money is being diverted to some other use. Housing could be an impact. If an elder cannot no longer pay rent or pay their mortgage, that could put their housing at risk. And even think about basic household necessities. If their money is being depleted, they can't afford things like laundry detergent or cleaning supplies or things of that nature. Things that normally would just keep somebody appearing clean and taken care of, things simple like that could actually have a pretty big impact over the long term. And medical equipment and supplies, you know, think of test strips for insulin or things of that nature. There are emotional impacts to exploitation. The elder may lose that ability to trust. A lot of times when we go out there, they've already been exploited, they've already been betrayed by family members and friends, and they lose trust in people. So any support they would need in the future, they may be reluctant to accept that help because of that loss of trust. They could be embarrassed by being victim or considering themselves stupid because they weren't able to prevent this. And that could prevent them from wanting to engage with us to help remedy it. Fear of loss of housing, fear of loss of independence. Those are all things that could be emotionally impacting this elder because of the exploitation. Mental health issues can be exacerbated because of the stress of losing money through exploitation. Even basic environmental concerns could be impacted by the exploitation. The ability to pay utilities. We have elders all the time that can no longer pay their electric bill or pay for heat. I mean, if they're on gas, that's one thing. They can get shut-off protection, but if they have oil delivery or propane, they're not going to deliver if they can't pay that bill. home repairs to upkeep the home will slowly deteriorate over time if they're unable to make the repairs they would normally be able to make if their income was intact and their savings were intact. And that goes for home or yard maintenance, being able to afford homeowner insurance, which would protect their home in the event of a catastrophe. Inability to pay city or taxes. The town and city wants their money. If they don't get it, they're going to put a lien on that home. And that could affect many things down the road. Even be able to afford car payments or car insurance. If they lose that car or lose their insurance, they can't drive, they've lost their independence, they can't get shopping done, they can't go to medical appointments, or they can't even socialize or go see family or friends. And it could also affect their credit history if they ever need to get a car loan or something in the future. So again, the impacts are both long-term and short-term. The short-term are basically ability to meet basic needs, immediate needs, pay bills, responsibility to pay back loans. There's impact, like I said, on homes if there's liens implemented by creditors or by the town. And a big impact would be the placement in long-term care needs. So if a person needs to go to long-term care and they need Mass Health pay for it, if there's been a large withdrawal from that account that can't be accounted for, Mass Health is going to have a look-back period, and it might impact the ability to get long-term care paid for by Mass Health. So typically, if it's proven that they were stolen from or exploited, Mass Health can do a waiver, but a lot of times it's difficult to actually prove the elder did not consent to transferring $10,000 to the son. So reporting financial exploitation to protective services. So all you have to have is a reasonable cause to believe that an elder is being exploited or has been exploited or is at risk of being exploited. You don't have to have any first-hand knowledge. You could hear a story at the COA that, oh, I heard that Mrs. Jones's son, stole her car or stole $10,000 from her. If you feel comfortable enough, I would request you report. If you're a mandated reporter, you're required to report as long as you have reasonable cause to believe that exploitation is or has occurred. And there are two ways to report. It used to be just the 800 number, and that's the number there. They're open 24/7. It's a really good way to report because the intake workers will actually have a script they work from. And they'll ask you a lot of questions you might not have thought to offer, information to gather information that you might not have thought to offer to us. There's another way to report is online at that link there. It's a pretty good form. It kind of gives you some prompts, but typically I find those reports not to be as thorough as if you call the 800 number. And the thing about the 800 number is if it's an immediate concern, if they feel there's immediate loss, we have the ability to respond quicker because they will call us and say, look, you need to get out there. This needs to be addressed today. But either way, it's fine. So you might ask yourself, so if it's such a crucial issue with high impact, why aren't people reporting? Why don't more people report? There's lots of reasons why people don't report. Typically, people are afraid to speak out. They're afraid either of retaliation from the people who are exploiting them. They might take it out on them in some way, exact retribution of some kind. They might not want to get others in trouble. We have clients who we go out to speak to them about the fact their son's stealing from them. They said, well, my son's been in trouble in the past. He's had a hard life. He's on probation. I don't want to report this because he's going to get in trouble and he might go back to jail. Ageism. A lot of times people will just say the elder's demented. She has cognitive impairment. She's not really understanding what's going on. I'm not stealing from her. I'm helping her. So people believe that because a person is older, they might not be able to have the cognition intact to actually discern what is right, what is wrong, what's actually going on. But also the misunderstanding of definitions. Any theft from a low-income elder is considered exploitation, even if it's 20 bucks from our perspective. A son who even would take an elder's SNAP card and spend 50 bucks on himself, that's considered exploitation. A lot of times people just see it as it's a family issue, the elder can handle it. It's still considered exploitation and it's reportable as protective services. We're not necessarily always interested in prosecuting these crimes. It's more about intervening and seeing what we can do to rectify the situation and make it better for our elders. And I would say one of the biggest barriers to reporting is the elder is afraid to lose her caregiver. Typically, the people that are abusing the elder, whether it be physical abuse or neglect or exploitation, the elder's relying upon them for care, to keep them out of a nursing home, to keep them at home, to keep them safe. So they feel if they report, then the caregiver will no longer be involved in their life and they'll lose some level of independence. So steps to prevention. It's important for all the reasons I just discussed. The impact can be very severe. We need to stop the loss as soon as we possibly can. And again, we're less concerned about prosecution, more concerned about remedying it if we can and preventing it. And there are ways to help. I mean, professionals in the room, educate yourself, educate your coworkers, understand what the definitions are, what the warning signs are, and the way others exploit, or even the scams that we'll talk about later, what those are that are out there. So you can help to educate your clients or your family or your friends about the situation. We here at LifePath will do outreach like this to kind of reach other mandated reporters and even people in the community. We'll reach out to council on agings. We'll work with police departments to all educate ourselves about what's going on and how to best remedy it. Another way is to help prevent it. There are a couple of specialized programs in Massachusetts. There's the money management program, which we have at LifePath, which is where basically you have a volunteer assigned to somebody who can help them manage their money on a monthly basis. They go visit them, they go through their bank statements, go through their checks, make sure everything's okay, and there's some oversight there. So even if an elder has some cognitive impairment, can engage with money management, there's somebody else looking at those statements to actually see if there's anything funny going on. There's a program in Massachusetts called the Massachusetts Bank Reporting Project. I'm not sure how widespread it is, or they might talk about that themselves. The banks will receive training about exploitation and provide community education to their customers about exploitation and how to remedy it. So I'd recommend you go to your bank and ask, are you guys part of this program? Because it's a pretty intensive program. A lot of banks are part of it. It's a good program because it teaches and trains the staff there as well to understand what exploitation looks like, what the warning signs are from their perspective, what they're seeing in the transactions that the others having in their accounts, and they'll report to us. They're not mandated, but most of the banks in the area will report to us if they have concerns about another's financial well-being. And simple steps people can protect themselves, personal safety, make sure you know who's coming into your home. Don't give out information over the phone to a person you don't know who they are. Planning ahead. Make sure you know somebody that you trust, a family member or a really close friend or a lawyer even, who you can nominate as your power of attorney. And make sure it's the right kind of power of attorney. Talk to a lawyer about what kind of power of attorney is best for you. Some they're not all the same. Some take effect the minute you sign that paper. That gives somebody the authority to go into your bank and empty your bank account. Some are considered a springing power of attorney, which means when you lose capacity, that's when the power of attorney will have effect. And there's no power to that power of attorney before that. Good financial practice. Read your bank statements. When they come in the mail or you look at them online, go through them each month. Make sure that there's nothing there that you didn't authorize. Review if your client or yourself has a caregiver doing your shopping. Look at your receipts when they come back home. Make sure that the money you gave them and the change and what was bought adds up. And also do your check register. Balance your checkbook on a monthly basis so you know where you're at. Also, safe ATM use. Make sure there's nobody behind you. Make sure nobody can see your PIN number. Don't give your card to anybody you don't trust or you don't know very well, and don't give out your PIN. And that's it. It was very fast.
How many are on your staff doing this kind of work, that is, looking into situations? How many do you have?
He was asking how many people are on our staff doing this kind of work. So in Protective Services, we have a total of 14 staff members. There's myself, 3 supervisors, and 10 investigators. And right now, I'd say we're getting more and more exploitation cases. And so they can tend to be more complex, because a lot of times we have a hard time getting bank statements. But the law has changed. We now have the ability to get bank statements from a bank without the consent of an elder, especially at times when we find an elder can't consent to giving us that permission, or they're reluctant to because they're afraid. If we feel the risk is high enough, we can still obtain those records, very specific records about what might be going on.
On any given day, how many cases are you working on it from your staff?
Exploitation or all cases?
Exploitation.
I'd probably say we get an average of like 2 or 3, 4 a week maybe, new cases. But typically, a lot of time our cases aren't just exploitation. They're usually a menu of different allegations all rolled into one. We don't typically see exploitation in and of itself as one allegation. Usually it's coupled with emotional abuse, physical abuse, and neglect. A lot of times we'll see neglect because the money's being stolen, so the caregiver is not providing the care that's needed, or they're not hiring workers because they're being taken from. So right now we have about 250 active cases in the agency for all allegations. Yes?
You said that you don't necessarily prosecute, but you intervene to help the elder.
Yeah.
If prosecution does happen, like what does that look like, or like how many years, or who's prosecuting?
I could let them talk about that. Typically what we do is we gather the information, and our bar for proving something is a lot less than theirs. It's 51%. If you told 6 people this, 10 people this happened, and 6 people said, yeah, the son's probably stealing from her, that's enough for us to substantiate it. It might not be an in-depth investigation or a lot of real details. We give it to the DA, and if they need to follow up and do further investigation, they will. So that's really up to them how that goes. Go ahead. Yes.
And you said that sometimes there isn't prosecution. I'm curious, like, what are other avenues of intervention if it's not legal?
We can, on rare circumstances, if an elder lacks capacity and maybe might be incompetent, and they're vulnerable to exploitation, we could get a conservator. That's one way to do it. But again, that's a rarity. We can get a protective order to keep somebody away. We could work with the elder themselves to either freeze the bank accounts, close an account, open a new one, change PIN numbers, just work with the elder to try to self-protect themselves. Or even work with them on setting up boundaries with other family members if they don't really want it to go further than just what we could offer. Okay, thank you all very much again.
My name is Anita Wilson. I work at the Northwestern District Attorney's Office in Consumer Protection. So our unit is the only unit that doesn't actually prosecute people or take people to court. We're a two-person unit. Myself, I work out of Northampton, and my colleague is Janice Garrett, and she works out of the Greenfield office, which is right on Bank Row near Village Pizza. So it's a really convenient location for Franklin County. So what we do is we help consumers who may have a problem with a business or some kind of business transaction. So we work in cooperation with the Massachusetts Attorney General's office. We're called a local consumer program, and we work together to try to help consumers who are having a problem. We also do a lot of education and outreach because it's really important when you're spending money to make educated decisions. So that's part of our charge as well. We also take a lot of complaints about scams and things that are happening. So we like to hear about scams. We like to hear about what's going on in the community so we can spread the word to groups like this about the scams that are going around. So our presentation today, I called it a scam alert, and it's really what you need to know to protect your money and your identity. So scammers are looking for that free paycheck by you wiring them money or sending them money, but they're also looking for that personal information so that they can steal your identity, because that's really valuable. Your date of birth, your social security number, all of that is really important and valuable information to criminals because they can use it to open up credit in your name and steal money from you. So it's really important to know how to protect that very private and personal information. We generally see 3 different scam delivery systems. So the first is the phone. And I don't know about you, but I get a lot of those robocalls. Do you get those? Or calls from people you don't know? The Federal Trade Commission, which is a government agency based in Washington, D.C., they track calls and scams, and they take reports of identity theft and fraud. And for 2019, they say that Americans got almost 60 billion of those robocalls each year. Yeah, we probably all believe it. I was sitting at my office earlier this week, and I got a robocall to my office, my district attorney's office phone number. They wanted to sell me an auto warranty. I'm good. I'm all set. And then within that 15-minute period, I got 2 to my personal cell phone. And I try to keep an eye on my cell phone. You know, we all do. I have family members that need to get in touch with me, so I keep an eye on my cell phone. So that's the biggest scam delivery system. So there are a lot of robocalls that people get. You get them maybe from the pharmacy or from your doctor's office to remind you of an appointment or pick up your prescription. You might get them from the town if there's a road closure. But about 3/4 of those billions of calls were scam calls. So they are trying to fool you. Another way they try to fool you is by things through the computer, whether it's through your email, online purchases. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. And that it hits people of all ages, but that's where younger people tend to get scammed the most or lose money. And also by mail. Some of these nefarious criminals also use mail to try to fool you. So again, they have one goal. They want to steal either your personal information or steal your money. So why do scams work? You hear about them, you might read them in the newspaper. Why do people fall for scams? They're really good at what they do. Oftentimes, they pretend to be an authority figure, somebody from Social Security, the IRS, the government, maybe your local police department, or someone who knows your business, maybe your bank. They pretend to be from your bank or from Microsoft. So they pretend to be an authority figure. I don't know about you, but when I'm driving and I see a police car, even if I'm going a normal speed, I get a little bit nervous. Because I'm afraid I'm going to get pulled over, even though I'm not doing anything wrong. You have a little bit of an innate fear of an authority figure, or maybe respect. Maybe that's a better way to put it. They play on your emotions. Have you heard about the grandparent scam? So they play on your emotions. Your grandchild is in trouble. You need to help them out. So they like to play on fear. You have to act fast, urgency. They may actually prey on your desire to have more money. So we'll talk about how those emotions are used. They hurry you up. They don't want you to give you time to think. So you have to act now, act quickly. I don't like to sign things unless I have a chance to read through them. I don't like to give people money over the phone. I need to see that information. So it's really good to remember that if somebody's trying to hurry you, they're probably up to no good. And sometimes they say they want to help you out. So if you think about the internet scam, your computer has a virus. We can help you out. Just pay us $1.99 and we'll download this software onto your computer and help you out. So a lot of times they want to help and, they're being nice. It's a good tactic to have. So watch out. The most common scams recently have been government imposter scams. And I know everyone's gotten that call from the IRS, Social Security. Those types of scams have been on the rise since 2014. The top payment methods they're looking for is they're asking you to buy gift cards and read them the numbers, or to transfer money through a wire service. And most of those calls tend to come in over the phone, as we all know. So the types of government imposters we see is Social Security Administration. There's a problem with your Social Security number. It's been used in a crime. You get those. It is concerning because your Social Security number is really important and you don't want it to be used in a crime. But I assure you, if it was used in a crime, you might hear from the police department. They're going to come visit you. They're not going to call you over the phone. Or if there's a problem with your Social Security number, they're going to send you mail. Same thing with Medicare. Everybody got new Medicare cards a couple years back. You don't need to verify the number. They gave you that number, long, complex number that's not your Social Security number on your Medicare cards for a reason, so that you could keep your personal information private. The IRS. If there's a problem with your taxes or they think you didn't pay your taxes, they'll send you a letter. We got one in our family from my mother-in-law who's retired and her only income is Social Security. She didn't file her taxes because she doesn't have any other assets. we still got the letter from the IRS saying, did you forget to file your taxes? So we had to respond to that. Also, sometimes people call about government grants. Your credit has been so good. You've paid your bills. We have this one-time offering to give you money because we have some extra money in the budget, or because President Trump's in power, or something like that. They give you these silly reasons why you're going to get a government grant. There's always a string attached. There's no free money. I wish there was, but there's no free money, unfortunately. Also, they pretend to be either the police department, the sheriff's department, FBI, US Marshals to try to scare you or threaten you. We got some calls in Hampshire County recently from people who were pretending to be from the sheriff's department, and they were telling people that they didn't report for grand jury duty. And because they didn't report for their grand jury duty, they needed to pay a fine. And obviously, it's a trick. If you don't report for jury duty, they're going to track you down with a paper path. Government agencies like to send out papers because then they have proof. We tried to contact them multiple times. We sent them so many letters. That's their way of proving their case against you, if they ever had a case against you. So just really beware. The sheriff's department, they don't call you if they need to serve you papers. They just show up. Or if they want to arrest you, they're just going to show up at your door because otherwise you'd run if you did something nefarious. So this is an example of one of those Social Security Administration robocalls. I'm going to try to play it, and we'll see if it works.
Enforcement agencies to suspend your Social Security number on an immediate basis, as we have received suspicious trails of information in your name. The moment you receive this message, I need you to get back to me on my department division toll-free number, that is 1-888-952-5554. I repeat, 1-888-952-5554. Verify the last 4 digits of your Social Security number when you call to better assist you with this issue. Now, if I don't hear a call from you, we will have to issue an arrest warrant under your name and get you arrested. So get back to me as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, so what kind of emotional tactics did they use to get you to call them back? Anyone have any ideas? Fear. They used the fear. Your Social Security number has been used in a crime. You need to call us. And then they use urgency. You need to call us immediately to take care of this issue. So they use these tactics to try to scare you. And I know it sounds foolish, and we all kind of laughed at the call. I think it's kind of laughable too because some of the grammar, not so good. But if they happen to catch you at one of those moments, and we all have those moments, we're busy, we're running around, something's wrong with a family member. Maybe we just lost a family member. Somebody's sick. That's when they get you. So they're hoping to catch you at one of those vulnerable moments when you're not thinking correctly, and they get you. And if it happens, it's okay to tell someone, and it's really important to tell someone because we all have those vulnerable moments when something happens. So if you do fall victim of the scam, it's really important that you tell someone. We've heard a lot about the grandparent scam, and we just kind of touched on it a little bit. But some of the examples that have happened right here in Western Massachusetts are pretty scary and pretty daunting. There was a case of somebody sending cash through FedEx. FedEx does screen their packages, but a lot of times these scammers tell you to kind of hide the money. So you put it in the pages of a book or a magazine, and you send it through FedEx that way, and their screening equipment doesn't always catch it. $14,000 in cash because the grandchild was in trouble. 2 other examples, $30,000 wired to a bank account. Another case, fortunately the person didn't lose this money, but they went out and bought $2,000 worth of gift cards. And then they thought again about it and were like, wait a minute, I've got to talk to someone about this. And that's really important. If you have a scenario that makes you feel kind of uncomfortable, tell somebody, talk it out. You know, it can be a bank teller. They will listen to you. It could be your friend. It could be someone at the senior center. Talk about it. Don't feel silly. Talk about it before you go and spend that money. So how it works is the caller pretends to be your grandchild in trouble, or they pretend now a lot of times to be either from the police, sheriff, a lawyer, someone who's dealing with bail. So they need the money right away. You have to wire it, send money, gift cards, things like that right away, because you don't want your grandchild staying in jail overnight. And the most important part they tell you is, don't tell my parents. They're going to kill me. I was riding with someone who had drugs in the car. They're going to kill me if they ever find out about this. So they want you to keep it a secret. What you can do, just hang up. A lot of times these people keep folks on the line when you go to the bank or when you go to buy gift cards. So they're in your ear the whole time that you're doing these transactions. So it makes sure that you follow through the transaction. So hang up. If you're even concerned that this is a possibility, call the parents, call the grandchild, just verify that information. And make sure you don't send the money, don't wire the money, and don't buy those gift cards. Publisher's Clearinghouse scam is another popular scam. It's a scam if you get a call from Publisher's Clearinghouse and they say that you won the prize, or that if you have to wire money or send gift cards in order to claim your prize. Or if they send you a check in the mail and you have to cash it and then send part of it back to pay taxes or pay fees to claim your prize, it's a scam. Or if somebody tries to contact you in advance to award you the prize. Have you ever seen those Publishers Clearinghouse ads on TV? Do you recognize the folks in that picture up there? That's the prize patrol. So when you win the prize, they're going to show up at your house with their camera, with that big check, with the flowers, with the balloons. They're going to show up at your house to award you the prize. And they might catch you in your pajamas. But they want that TV moment of you opening the door and seeing them out there and getting the prize. They want that moment on TV. So the only way you're going to know that you won that grand sweepstakes or that grand prize is seeing these guys outside your door. Some other phone scams we're just going to touch on is utility payments. Sometimes you get a call from the utility company that you didn't pay your bill, they're going to turn off your lights if you don't pay right now. Verify that with your utility company. Look on your bill, give them a call. They're happy to help. Computer viruses, we talked a little bit about that. Microsoft, Apple, they are not going to call you to tell you your computer has a virus, even if it does. There is not a room of people at Microsoft who watches everybody's computers and says, oh, Mrs. Jones has a virus, I've got to give her a call. Not true. Banks or credit card companies, I get calls from Wells Fargo all the time. I'm not a Wells Fargo customer, so I'm not going to call them back. I did get a call from my bank, and I was very suspicious. They said there was a problem with my account. I was so suspicious that I got my ATM card out, I looked on the back of it, and I called that number to verify if there actually was a problem with my account. There was. A payment didn't go through. I had to fix it. But if you get a call from a bank or credit card company, get out that piece of plastic and verify. Phony charities, they kind of sound sometimes like a real charity. I always want them to send me information. I feel uncomfortable about giving over the phone unless I absolutely know who I'm giving money to. So criminals, as we've talked about, they want easy money. So they want gift cards. And the funny thing here in the Greenfield area is we've talked to the Greenfield Police Department. Dean was at a program where they talked about this. For some reason, they want people to go out and buy Home Depot gift cards. Don't know what it is about Home Depot. Maybe it's convenient. It's right on the Mohawk Trail. But they wanted people to buy Home Depot gift cards to pay for various schemes. They also ask you for iTunes or Google Play. Who knows what those cards are for? What's an iTunes card? Yeah, so you get stuff from the iTunes store, like downloading music, downloading games, things like that. The IRS does not need iTunes gift cards. or Google Play. They just don't need those. And then something like a money pack, it's a prepaid card. The problem with these things is, well, you buy them, you pay money for them, and the minute you give someone else that number off of them, where's your money? It is gone. It's gone. The same thing with wiring money. Those money wiring things, those transactions take place really quickly, and you can do them like at Walmart or other department stores. So the money just goes and transfers away from you really quickly. And then again, the cash, we talked about that, how people want to send cash because can't trace cash. So some phone safety tips. Don't trust your caller ID. I know the phone companies are working on this, but there's still spoofing going on. So that's how they can change the phone number. They can change the name of who it's from. Don't answer the phone if you don't have to. If you have an answering machine or voicemail, let all your calls go to voicemail unless you have them saved in your phone so you know it's your doctor's office ringing you or you know it's your daughter ringing you. Hang up quietly. If you do happen to pick up one of those calls and you hear the robocall or you hear somebody talking to you, it's okay just to hang up. Make them think that they're not going to catch anyone at home when they call you. Don't press 1. Sometimes they say, press 1 if you want to be taken off our list. Don't do it. If you can, if you have a capability on your phone, just block them. But you'll probably get another call from them from a different number because, like we said, they can spoof or change their numbers. And if you have Do Not Disturb option on your phone, I have it on my cell phone. A lot of times I'll turn that on when I'm at work. So I have all my important contacts in my cell phone. So if I hit Do Not Disturb, if my daughter, who's in college, gives me a call, it'll ring. But if that telemarketer calls me, it's not going to ring because he or she is not in my contact list. Moving on to computer scams, we'll touch on these really quickly. The most common one is online romance, and that's where you meet someone through a dating service. It may be through social media, computer repairs. Again, your computer has a virus. Pop-up screens, phishing emails. We'll get into all these. And imposter schemes, again, like your bank or utility company or something like that. So in 2018, $143 million lost to romance scams. And it's people of all ages. A lot of people in my demographic, kind of middle age, like 30 to 69, we're getting targeted by these online romance scams because we may be looking for a partner, looking for love, and it's so easy with the computer technology that we have to just steal someone's picture off the internet and put it on your own profile. It's really hard to verify who people are. So, and they're really cruel. They play on your emotions, and they take months and months and months to convince you that this is a love interest, this is someone you should trust. But they'll start asking you for money. And you never get to meet them. Oh, something always comes up. You know, my mother's sick. My daughter just had a baby. My car broke down. It's a very cruel trick that they play, but they spend lots of time, and the investment and their return can be really big. People lose a lot of money in these schemes. Pop-up screens on your computer. This one is from Microsoft's website, and it says, call Microsoft, there's a problem with your computer, and they gave you Microsoft's number. But the criminals aren't going to give you Microsoft's number. They're going to give you their number of their little call center, and they're going to want you to pay them to help fix your computer. They might ask for access to your computer, and that's really dangerous. Never let someone remote into your computer, that's the terminology that they'll use, to try to help you fix a problem unless you call them. You call Microsoft personally. You've called Apple, not because someone's called you and kind of started this relationship. So that's something to look out for. Phishing emails, like this one, this is a fake one. It's from the trusted bank. So like I was talking about, Wells Fargo always gets in touch with me. My bank got in touch with me through email. They want you to click on this link. And don't click on the link because they're going to be looking for your personal information. They'll probably want your, your ID. If you do online banking, they're going to want your passwords and stuff like that. Maybe your last 4 digits of your Social Security number. So it's really important not to click on these links. Always check with your bank. If there's a problem, you can get through to the call center. Someone will tell you, or go down and visit your local branch. So to be safe on the computer, don't wire money, send cash, or buy gift cards ever to someone who solicits you over the computer. Don't click on links in the emails. Don't allow anyone to remotely access your computer. And don't pay for security scans or software. Chances are when you buy your computer, all that stuff is already included in your computer, different antivirus programs. If you don't know how it works, reach out to someone who does know how it works. They can help you. Call the store where you purchased it. Visit the store where you purchased it. They can help you if there's a problem with your computer. And keep all your apps and your programs up to date, because that will kind of try to block any activity from going on. The last is mail scams. A lot of the letters that we see in our office are from fake lotteries or sweepstakes, like the Publishers Clearinghouse. Some are international lotteries. For a while, there was people were getting letters from Spain or Portugal saying that people had won the lottery over there. And at the bottom of the letter, they said that you would have to fly to Madrid to collect your prize. Any guesses why they would put that on there? Well, probably the next letter that comes in or the phone call that you make, you don't have to come, but if you send us a check for blah, 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 we can facilitate it all. So they're just looking for your money. Fake checks are another problem. Phony charity solicitations, and also those government grants come up again. Sometimes you get something in the mail, maybe a check in the mail. I'd be really wary about depositing a check from someone I didn't know. Here's an example of a lottery scam, and if you see in the corner, it's like Mega Millions, USA, lottery services. There were a whole bunch of pages in this packet. It had like a fake check from a bank in it, a real bank that all of us would know, a national bank. It had something from the Federal Trade Commission, one of their officers, supposedly his badge number, his picture. This one was really elaborate. Basically, you get this information through the mail. This one said that you got entered because either you paid your utility bill on time, or you bought an item with one of their manufacturers using either your credit card, debit card, or a check. How many of us buy stuff with a debit card, credit card, or a check? Anyone in this room probably does that. You have to call immediately to claim your prize, so they're using that urgency thing again. But you do have to pay a small fee in order to claim your prize. I would love to win the lottery. I have one child in college and one child who's on the way to college. I would love it. My home could use all kinds of improvements. I could help out family members. That would be great. But unless I enter the lottery, chances are it's not going to happen. And even then, chances are I'm not going to win the big prize. But if you are feeling stressed out about bills, or maybe you want to leave a legacy to your family and you don't have the money in your bank account or your investments, this might be attractive and it might fool you. But hopefully it won't. Check scams, some scams, they will send you this check, you deposit it into your account, they want you to wire money back. The check is going to bounce first, so you'll be out that money. And you're also out the money that you sent back to them. So these are sometimes for lottery scams. And also sometimes if you're involved in buying something over eBay, or if you're buying something on Craigslist, and a lot of times the person is from far away, and we're going to, they'll send you a check for the money to pay for it. And I'm going to have my friend who lives in the area pick up that used car. But I'm going to give you a little extra money because I know it's a big hassle, or you're spending extra time on it. So they'll send you a check for more than what the product is worth, and a lot of times they want to send you to send them back money. Or I can only write a check for $2,000, but it really only costs, $1,500. So these checks always look real, but once you deposit it in the bank, it's your responsibility. If something like this does happen to you, you have a problem with a bad check, address it quickly with your bank. They might be able to help you out, but basically your deposit, your responsibility. They might put you on a payment plan to pay back if you get a bad check like that. It's bad news. Yeah?
So if you get a bad check and you just deposit it and you don't spend it, then there's no harm. I mean, you get a check for $1,000, you put it in, and then it bounces, but you haven't used it.
So she was asking if you get a check for $1,000, you deposit it, but you keep that money in your account. They're going to take the money out of your account. You may get charged fees too if it affects your balance goes below. Yeah, most people who would get it would get taken out of your account, and you could end up paying extra fees on it. But chances are there are going to be catches to those bad checks so that they can make more money back from you. So some mail safety tips. Check out any charities that you receive solicitations from. Know that if you get anything about a lottery or sweepstakes letter in the mail, it's a fake and it's a scam. Generally don't take checks from strangers. And nobody's going to give you free money, unfortunately. So some general warning signs are stop if you sense any of these warning signs. Urgency, act now, act quickly, don't give you time to think. That's a big red flag. If they make any kind of threats about arresting you, that's another big flag. You can always call your police department or your sheriff's department if you feel like someone from their department is threatening you, or if you're getting a threatening call or even a call about your grandson in trouble from another police department or sheriff's department, call your local police department. Chances are they can help you out, and they could make the call to, the police department up in Canada to help you verify the information. And they want you to keep it a secret, keep it to yourself, and they don't give you time to hang up and talk it through with someone else. If it sounds too good to be true, like Mom said, it probably is. And anytime anyone that you don't know or who pretends to be an authority figure wants you to wire money, buy prepaid cards, or send them cash. If you have any questions, if you get a call that you're uncomfortable with or in a situation that you're uncomfortable with, you can always call one of our offices and someone is always happy to help you.
So with the technology we have now, what I don't get is why can't the FCC catch any of these people? It just boggles my mind.
Sometimes people do get caught, and they are prosecuted, or there are settlements that go back to people, but it's really hard with them changing their numbers. A lot of times they're in other countries, and your local police department doesn't have the ability to go down to, say, Florida, where I get one of my phoning calls from, and do a huge investigation.
But the FCC, any other,
Homeland
Security,
right.
So many agencies.
You can report scams if they happen to you. Report them as soon as possible. There are so many that happen. It's really hard to catch up with everyone, but there is a possibility they have caught some of these people. Congress just signed some legislation, and the president signed it as well. It's called Shake and Stir, and it's an acronym for all these words having to do with computers. But basically, it charges the phone companies to work to cut down on the scam calls that actually get through to you on your telephone. So they're really pushing the phone companies, and a lot of phone companies are working and have offered things to consumers to try to cut down on the calls. And they're trying to validate numbers before they actually get to your phone. But like we said, 60 billion calls a year of these robocalls. And then just imagine all the calls that we make on a personal basis, how many calls that actually is. So they are trying, but I think for every good person who's working in the technology field, there are people who see a lot of money coming out of it who kind of turn to the dark side and try to fool all of us into doing that. The important thing is, if you're not on the Do Not Call registry, I would sign up right now. That cuts back on the number of telemarketing calls that you're going to get. And it kind of puts something in your brain. If I'm getting a call and I'm on the Do Not Call registry, should I really believe this person? Are they supposed to be calling me? And is that legal? And chances are, it is illegal. They shouldn't be calling you. So it's really a way for you to say, wait, no, I'm not going to talk to them.
How long does that last?
Do Not Call registry, forever.
Forever?
Yep.
Okay.
And if you have a cell phone, if you haven't registered that, you can register it as well. With either the National Do Not Call or Massachusetts has a Do Not Call registry as well. And they share information.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to bring Rachel. Oh, you have another question?
What happens when you screen a call with your phone? I just got a new phone and it has like that option you can press it and like read some automated. But I assume they just like, okay, it's a real number then, right?
I don't know. I guess that would be a question for your phone company. Sometimes when you do reject calls or I block them. I don't know. I think I have unlimited blocking or something like that. But when you block them with my phone company, it sends them a message that it's a potential scam call. And hopefully they'll put that on their list and that'll be another way to screen them out. But if it's a local call, I mean, somebody could have that phone number. So maybe, I don't really know how that works, but it's good if you have a way to block or report it as spam.
If you're on a Do Not Call list, and you're still getting calls. How does that work?
So the Do Not Call list, it's a list of phone numbers that generally reputable businesses use so that they know that they can't do a telemarketing call to you. So I remember a lot of times when I was younger, you would get calls from people trying to sell you vacuum cleaners, sell you photo packages, things like that. So the Do Not Call is really used by the reputable businesses so that they know you don't want to hear from them. Companies who you do business with already or who you've given permission to call you can still call you even if you're on the Do Not Call list. But it's kind of, criminals are going to call you anyway. I got a call from a local business at 10:30 at night. I was not happy. One of those robocalls. I reported him to the FCC because he should not be calling me that late. I don't want those robocalls at 10:30 at night. It's illegal. They shouldn't be calling you after 8 o'clock. I am going to turn you over to Rachel because she has more information about prosecution of financial abuse, scams, things like that, that our office can do.
Thank you all for coming this afternoon, and thank you all for sticking it out as long as you have. Fun fact I'm going to use to segue. So millennials, the millennial generation, get scammed at a higher rate than the senior generation. I know, right? Whoa. So elders lose more money because they have more money. But yeah, yeah, it's true. Millennials fall victim to more online scams, so online shopping. I know I've made some real sketchy purchases through Facebook. So obviously you have too. So I'm actually really happy to be in a room that's so diverse. So we have seniors, which is normally who I usually speak to, but it's also great to have such a wide range of ages because the stuff we're talking about here today is a community-wide issue. It's not just a senior issue. So I'm very happy that everyone is here. So I should probably, did I tell you my name? I don't even know. My name is Rachel Senecal. I am the coordinator of the Elder and Persons with Disabilities Abuse Unit at the Northwestern District Attorney's Office. David E. Sullivan is our district attorney in Hampshire and Franklin County. So we cover, and the town of Athol. Don't ask me why, we get that too. But we have a very, very wide range. So I work at the same office as Anita. So I'm just going to go into a little bit about the Northwestern District Attorney's Office in general, so you have a better idea of what we do. So our duties, we have two primary functions: prosecute criminal offenses and prevent crimes. That's it. So we are in no way, shape, or form involved in housing court, probate court, or other civil matters. There can be coinciding civil and criminal proceedings involved in the same situation, but we don't. We are strictly criminal. We are in strictly criminal court. So Hampshire, Franklin counties. And our office is broken up into different units in order to meet those goals. So we have a child abuse unit that focuses on crimes committed against children. We have a juvenile justice unit, which handles crimes committed by children. We also have a consumer protection unit that you just learned about. And we also have a elder and persons with disabilities abuse unit, which investigates and prosecutes crimes committed against seniors and folks with disabilities. So not every DA's office has an elder and persons with disabilities unit. This is a very unique thing that our district attorney offers. A lot of other district attorneys' offices will have special victims units, which kind of lumps everybody into one sort of specialized unit. So we have broken off. So this is just a little breakdown of our unit. There's an assistant district attorney who is specialized in prosecuting crimes committed against elders and persons with disabilities. That's not me. I'm sorry. I am the program coordinator, and I work directly with the prosecutor in the unit. We take a multidisciplinary approach to handling these types of cases. So we work very closely with LifePath up here in Franklin County. We work with Highland Valley Elder Services down in Hampshire County. We also work with agencies such as the Mass Rehab Commission, which is right over there. We also work with the Department of Developmental Services, Department of Mental Health, work with all sorts of agencies to work on these cases. With these prosecutions come a very unique set of challenges, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. But we're trained to deal with those types of circumstances. So we do education and outreach like I'm doing right now. We go out, we talk to folks about what we're seeing in the office and how our office works. And I am also the Triad liaison. If you don't know what Triad is, it is a community policing initiative that is found all over the country. And I meet once a month with local police, fire, sheriff's office, seniors in the community, and we all sit down at the table and we talk about safety issues in that particular community and how we can address them. Okay. All right, we'll start off with a little trivia. What are the odds a senior in the US will fall victim to some form of abuse? Anybody have any idea? So 1 in 75, 1 in 100, 1 in 500, 90s, 1 in 35, 1 in 10, 1 in 2. Whoa. We have a problem. All right, let's see. 1 in 10. I have no prize for you. I'm sorry. You just get the satisfaction of knowing that you know that. So 1 in 10, that's a terrifying statistic, an absolutely terrifying statistic. So this kind of encompasses the whole shebang. So physical abuse, financial exploitation, self-neglect is included in that number. But that's scary. That's very scary. This is, Dean already touched on this, so I'm not really going to get too much into it. This is just a definition of the term elder and abuse. An elder is an individual over the age of 60. 60 is not old, to be clear. It's just the way the statute was written. When these statutes were written, 60 was old. All right, so we break it up in our office into 5 different categories. So we have physical, sexual, financial, neglect, and emotional abuse. With financial exploitation being the #1 case that we investigate and that we prosecute. So that's why we're all in this room. All right, so this is just a little chart. This is a study done back in, where's the number, 2014. They took a survey of, I believe, just over 4,000 elders who fell victim to some type of abuse. And they looked at who the abusers were. So this chart sort of accurately depicts the type of people that we prosecute in our office. So we unfortunately have family members as number 1. 2, friends and neighbors. And then 3, home care aides. So, yeah, family members are they're so much higher than every other demographic, and that's true. Does anyone have any idea why that may be?
They have private access to it.
Private access.
Trusted.
Trusted. So in a nutshell, people, when they commit crimes, they don't want to get caught. And if they steal money from somebody who they truly believe will either A, not believe that they're taking money from them, or B, never in a million years report them to authorities, that's a very attractive target. So, so Dean already sort of went into what is financial exploitation, all the different kinds. So having that in the back of our minds, I'm going to sort of discern the difference between criminal financial exploitation, which we prosecute or are able to prosecute, and non-criminal, which we unfortunately are not. So we see these scenarios very frequently in our office, and we use them to sort of differentiate between something we can prosecute and something we cannot. All criminal financial exploitation, or all financial exploitation, is bad. It is all bad, it is all horrible, and we see it way too frequently. But we can't necessarily prosecute everything. So for criminal exploitation, we are looking for things like coercion. So if someone is coerced, so like Dean said, either give me money for a car, you're not going to see your grandkids. That's a crime, that's coercion. False information, if you are lied to, you say, hey, I need $100 because I need, or a couple $1,000 for surgery because I need this life-saving surgery, and someone gives you a couple $1,000 and you spend it on a trip to Bermuda, that's a crime. You lied. You lied to get that money, even though the person willingly handed it over. And threats goes again with coercion. Unauthorized monetary or property movements. So if anyone's money is taken out of an account or taken physically without authorization, that's a crime. Same thing with property. And manipulation of individuals who are not competent. So competency and capacity is we love that in the elder world. It's a big, a lot of things teeter on competency. So competency is determined by a court, and a court only. A person is only incompetent when they are deemed so by a court of law. Bottom line. There can be capacity questions. Someone can be questionable, but competency is a legal term. So that's what we kind of look at. These are when we get a referral from LifePath and we think, okay, is this something we can prosecute or not? So this is sort of what we look at. And in the non-criminal section, so I think Dean touched upon this as well, a dual bank account. If a lot of people do this, and I get why it's very easy to help somebody out this way, but if I put Anita on my bank account, that's Anita's bank account too, legally speaking. I'm not doing that, but no. Well, I'll pay you for the PowerPoint help, but that's it. So if you put someone else's name on your bank account, that's still your money in there, but they have legal access to it, and that is very, very hard to prosecute, darn near impossible. You have told the banks that this person has access to my account. Same thing with powers of attorney. That's a whole other ballgame that I want to get into because I could talk for hours about powers of attorney. But dual bank accounts are a big issue that we see, and people call us all the time about these issues, say, why can't you do something? It's like, well, their name's on the account. That ties our hands completely. So legal documents signed by competent adults. Oh, this one. So your signature is a very powerful tool. Your signature, when it is on a legally binding document, is just that. It is legally binding. So you as a competent adult, if you sign a legal document, you are expected to know what that document says. So unless you yourself, if you're signing something complicated, and unless you yourself take the steps to understand what that means, you may not know what that means. So for example, there was a particular case of an elder who was recovering from a surgery. And so she was already in a pretty vulnerable space. And her 3 adult children approached her with a document and said, "Mom, if you sign this, it will help us help you take care of your finances." She's like, "Oh, great. That sounds awesome." So she signs the document. Turns out it was a quick claim deed to the family's vacation home. So she signed over that vacation home. It is so easy to sign over a house, by the way. It's terrifying. They signed that house over to these 3 kids. That elder's plan was to sell the house and live off the proceeds comfortably for the rest of her life. So she is now in a very messy legal battle at this point, but she, as a competent adult, she was expected to know what that deed was when she signed it. So that's a big issue that we see. In that particular case, I had family members calling me saying, how did this happen? Why can't you guys do anything? And while that's very wrong, it's not necessarily illegal. Okay, freedom to choose. That's a very important factor that plays into all this. I've gotten several calls from family members of elders saying, "Hey, my grandma is giving my cousin all her money. She can't afford food, she barely can afford her rent, she can't afford to keep her car anymore. You guys gotta do something." And then our next question is your grandmother a competent adult? And usually or sometimes the answer is yes. Competent adults can give their money to whoever they want if they're competent to make that decision. And see, it always kind of hinges on that competency piece. But we look at that, we get a lot of those calls. That's probably the most frequent one we get out of those 3. And people say, "My grandma, she keeps giving out all her money." But she can do that. People can do what they want. So I will get to that. I totally knew that question was coming. So her question was, in the state of Washington, someone was considered competent if they knew the year and the president. They're considered legally competent. Not so much. Not so much in, so someone is assumed to be competent unless they are proven otherwise, so it sort of starts there. But actually, I think I have that on the next slide. I do. All right, so I'll swing back to that because it's over here. So I'll start there and I'll go down. All right, so barriers to successful prosecution. Which are the most frustrating things to me in the world? I'm starting to like this mic. All right, so one of our biggest, the top 2 have a lot to do with scams and why we cannot prosecute scams. Why can't we take these people to court? Why aren't we holding them accountable for all this money they're taking? And so our office, that's really 2 reasons. The first is all jurisdictional. So traditionally, if money is stolen and moves across state lines, that automatically makes it a federal offense. So our state statutes, I guess this kind of falls into both of those. Our state statutes are a little bit convoluted. So the people who wrote our statutes and our jurisdictional requirements were writing them at a time when scams weren't a thing. So our state statutes were written at a time when larceny meant someone stealing a purse and running away. That's sort of what we're working with. And granted, the existence of credit cards and debit cards and checks have certainly played a role in that. We now have unauthorized debit card transaction charges and things like that. But our state statutes don't address scams. Federal statutes do. And the problem is the feds. This isn't really on like their super high priority list. It's probably like 3 or 4 down. But the federal government that's who should be taking this kind of stuff. And unfortunately, they're not really looking at it. And it's very unfortunate. Like Anita said, there is legislation that was put, that shake thing, shake, stir, martini thing. That is sort of their way of making sure that the number you see on that caller ID is the actual number that the call is coming from. Which, again, wouldn't prevent the call from coming in, but you would at least have a better idea of who's actually calling. Because now they can make it look like the Greenfield Police Department is calling you, the Sheriff's Office. I mean, there's no limit to what they can do. So that's kind of where we are. Those are some big, big issues. And the same with the police department. Once that money goes out of Greenfield Police Department no longer have jurisdiction. Then it's state police. Once that gets out of Massachusetts, state police don't have jurisdiction. It's the federal authorities. So there's a lot of jurisdictional issues that play into this. And we're kind of playing catch up as best we can, but we're not really moving at a rate that it needs to move at. So not to make everybody all upset now, but that's sort of where we are. And that's why I'm so happy everyone's here, so that we can prevent this stuff from happening. Okay, so those are those two. And the statutory requirements also play into when we prosecute someone for stealing from their grandmother. So with each charge, we have a laundry list of, I guess, circumstances that have to be met. So I know for larceny by false pretenses, which is one that we see quite a bit, which is when someone lies to someone else to get their money, we have about 6 or 7 conditions that need to be met with those circumstances. And if we don't check off every one of those, we can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's very frustrating, and we see a lot of stuff fall through the cracks because of that. But it's just the nature of criminal court is our burden of proof is like, woo, way up here. All right, so victim cooperation is a big one. This one is so big. And it kind of goes back to why criminals will select family members as targets. So one of the things that we need to prove in a larceny case is that there was money stolen. And the way we do that is we need a victim to say, my money was stolen. That's number one. We need a crime first. And if we don't have a willing victim to come into court and testify to say, my money was stolen, our hands are totally tied. They're completely tied. And not to say, so we get a lot of victim uncooperation due to the nature, a lot of family members involved, nobody wants to get their family member in trouble. Some people don't even realize they're being taken advantage of. And there are other ways to get around it depending on the circumstance. But we take it case by case basis. But generally we need that victim to be able to come into court, sit down in front of their family member and say, my money was stolen and they took it. So it's difficult. A lot of people on the outside say, well, why wouldn't you do that? Especially if you are low income, and there's a lot riding on this. But people don't want to testify against their family members. I wouldn't, personally. So it's not hard to see why. All right, so medical certificate. So this goes back to your question. So in Massachusetts, to be deemed incompetent by a court, a medical certificate needs to be completed. And I think you're all nursing students here, right? All right, so you'll know where I'm coming from here. So a medical certificate, it's a pretty extensive packet that is filled out by either a psychiatric nurse, a primary care physician, psychologist. Yes, I know there's 3, and I couldn't remember the last one. Thank you.
Psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. I always confuse those.
Well,
both.
No, it could be either.
Don't quote me. One of those.
It could be either.
So those need to get filled out. It's a very extensive interview process. It's basically getting a medical opinion from a medical professional about whether or not this person can make decisions for themselves. So that includes signing things. That includes, so if someone's incompetent, they can't sign anything. If they do sign something, that's something we can look into. The only problem, which is why it's a barrier, is that we have to prove at the time this person either handed money over, started a financial arrangement, added someone to their bank account, that they were incompetent at the time they did that. And a lot of times, most times, we don't have that medical certificate at that time. So there are other things we can do to prove somebody was incompetent at that time, circumstantial stuff, but we need a lot of it, and sometimes it's just not there. So that's why it's under barriers. And then competency to testify. So in order for someone to be competent to testify, this standard is actually much less than this medical certificate. There's two things. They need to be able to know the difference between a truth and a lie, and they need to understand why lying is bad. And they need to be able to perceive and recall. Perceive and recall anything, really, just in general, not just what happened, not just what's in question. So, and we can prove that, again, a laundry list of different ways. It depends on the case. And another issue that I didn't put on here, financial cases can be very lengthy. Sometimes we're talking years worth of bank statements. I mean, we've gotten things from LifePath that are this thick, and we got to sit there and go through everything. And the unfortunate issue with elders, too, is we don't have unlimited time sometimes. Sometimes our victims are 95, 96, 97 years old, and we got to get the ball rolling. So that can be another barrier. Because if a victim passes away, the rules stay the same. If we don't have someone to come in and testify, we kind of have to forfeit our case, which again is not great. It's not ideal, but it's just the way the statutes are as they are right now. So clearly we have some work that we need to do, legally speaking, but this is where we are.
A question?
Sure.
If you win a case in a situation where the complainant has died, who is the beneficiary?
So it depends. So if someone passes away and we are able to prove a case, likely the perpetrator will get reprimanded in some way, whether that's getting treatment for something, taking anger management courses. And another thing that we can order is restitution, which is a lot of our financial cases. So there would obviously be no restitution in there because the victim is no longer alive to receive any of those funds. But there are other ways to deal with that type of conviction. Another issue with restitution that is very unfortunate is usually people that steal money have none. So when it comes time to pay restitution, usually they don't have any money. So, and that's another issue, is they have to have the ability to pay that restitution. And sometimes if we can't order restitution, we can ask for a lengthier probationary period. We can ask for an additional house of correction or state prison time, depending on the situation. Ooh, I had a typo. No. Oh, all right. I need help with this. All right, so these are just some helpful tips. Some of them Dean already went over. A couple of them I want to touch on. The first one, debit cards are the worst things ever. Don't let anybody use your debit card. I always say if you want to have some sort of situation where you give someone a debit card to assist you, so getting groceries, picking up dry cleaning, whatever, I always say it's a good idea to start a new bank account with just a small portion of the funds that you need them to help you with. That way you can have a debit card, and if they decide to use it all, your main financial source is protected. Again, monitor, read your monthly bank statements. Very, very important to read your bank statements, especially if you use your debit card quite frequently. I know there have been many, many times where I use the office vending machine, and then I see a charge, and I totally forget, and then I see a charge on my account for $1.25, and I'm like, whoa, this is weird. And then I call everybody and say, what is this charge? And it was, I bought chips. And they have to tell me I bought chips. I'm like, okay, sorry. But it's always good, monitor that, because what will sometimes happen is if someone takes your credit card information or your debit card information, they'll charge something very small, so $1.25, just to see if you notice. And then if you don't, they'll increase it from there. So it's always good to read those statements. I always say to shred any non-essential documents with personal information. So any medical records, banking records that you don't need to keep. I always recommend don't just throw them away, shred them. A lot of banks will do community shredding events. Sometimes senior centers will do them. Again, understand the repercussions of financial documents and decisions. Be a pain in the butt. Ask everybody. Ask your bank tellers. Your bank tellers are really, really vital resources. Again, plan for your future. Dean touched upon that with wills and powers of attorney. Never give personal information over the phone. So basically, don't answer your phone. Don't go outside. Don't open your mail. Don't go on the computer. So short of that, don't talk to strangers. Yeah, don't buy chips. Never buy chips. And another thing that I like to talk about on how to deal with scams is we can't do much by ourselves, but I always recommend people to write their lawmakers. Write the people who represent us in Congress and in the major legislative bodies. They need to know this is happening. They need to make waves. And if they're good representatives like they should be, they will listen. You guys are their voters. You guys, they represent you. So the more they know how big a problem this is, the better we all are. Always, this is coming from me personally. I see this a lot. Document all financial arrangements that you have with somebody. So if you have somebody who's going to the store for you once a week and you're giving them 20 bucks, write that down. You sign it, they sign it. So should something go wrong, you have that in writing, because oftentimes it's he said, she said, you know, she stole my 40 bucks, she gave it to me, she said I could have it. And then sometimes we don't have the proof necessary to make it lean one way or the other. So we can still go to trial with just somebody saying that. However, our chances are very, very slim. Ask for receipts. Receipts are great. Everyone loves them. And stay socially active and educated. Isolation is a huge risk factor in elder abuse. So a scenario where an elder has been, they may live in a hill town where their nearest neighbor is 3-4 miles down the road. Their spouse has passed away. Their adult children have moved far away and they're not really in the picture anymore. That senior, that person living alone, is a very attractive target for all sorts of elder abuse. Because number one, if they don't have a lot going on and they get a phone call from a scammer, it's more likely they'll, you know, well, I don't have anything to do today, I'll chat with this person. And then they sort of get trapped, because scammers, if they have a good target, they'll put in the work. They will call back, they'll, you know, build a rapport with somebody. It's awful. They're really awful people. And also because an isolated senior who may have a pretty decent bank account is an attractive target to a family member. And I'll end with this, and we can go to questions, but I like to compare this. So has anyone, I know this is going to get weird, but has anyone heard of the term grooming in child abuse cases? Grooming, where the perpetrator will be friends, everything's nice, they'll have like weird nicknames for body parts that like don't sound like cookie or flour, you know? So like, so they do that so that the child feels comfortable and they won't tell what's going on. That's exactly what's going on with elder abuse with family members. Family members will sort of infiltrate themselves into the picture. They'll start off small, say, hey, can I borrow $20? I really, really need it. And then sometimes it will just escalate and escalate and escalate, and all of a sudden the senior's house is in foreclosure, and they didn't even see it coming. They thought they were Am I done? Is that it? Ooh. Oh no. Okay, reporting. So Dean covered that. Just so you guys know, so when a case comes into Adult Protective Services, they do not automatically report to us. They do a little bit of background. They look into things. And if they substantiate a significant instance of elder abuse, then they will forward it to our office. So when a report is made to the hotline, police aren't immediately running out to the scene and knocking on doors and getting all up in everybody's way. It's taken a least intrusive approach is taken with these cases. And reporters are always anonymous. I don't know if he mentioned that, but reporters are always anonymous. So you can make a report on your sister, and your sister will never know unless you tell her. Yep, and then we take a look at the report, and we go from there, figure out if this is something, if this is a crime, and if we can go forward. Pass it on. Yeah, this is probably the most important thing on my slides is pass it on. I recently did a webinar, or participated in a webinar where they did a sample of folks who had fallen victim to scams. And they asked them, how did you find out about scams, or how do you learn about scams? Number one was the news. Number two, word of mouth. And every once in a while, there's a scam thing on the TV we'll see, but it's a lot of word of mouth. So we got to keep these conversations going. And that's me. We have lots of information in the back. My card's back there. I do have the slides, these slides, if anyone wants one. Please do not pay attention to the typos and the weird graph thing that I did. And that's it. Oh, questions too. Ooh, right here.
If an elder is being abused by someone who's not paying rent to them and is living there, is that something you can help with?
So the question was, what if an elder is not being paid rent by a tenant? Is that something we can help with? So unfortunately, that is not something we can help with. That needs to go through housing court. Usually tenant-landlord things is a housing court thing. However, if it gets to the point, it's very circumstantial too. So I don't want to say yes or no because I don't have everything, I don't have all the information, but typically it goes through housing court. And I think our Consumer Protection Unit does offer some information about landlord-tenant rights and what you should know about that kind of stuff.
I just want to share something that happened to me. I subscribed to several magazines, and I started getting calls. We're not trying to sell you anything, we just want to make sure your information is up to date, and they have my name and address and phone number, and then they'll say, and what credit card do you use? And I said, well, if you're not selling me anything, I don't think you really need that number.
Nope.
I got 4 or 5 of these calls. Every time it was a different person from a different phone number. I finally said, I don't know what you're up to. I don't trust you. If you call me again, I'm calling the police. I never got another call.
Smart of them. So one thing I will say about these scammers is a lot of people think scammers are sort of just a couple random people that are in a house somewhere making phone calls. So the scam, I guess, industry is several $billion deep. I mean, these people have a lot of money to work with. They have the best technology available. They operate very similar to a regular business. It's like organized crime. So they're going to call you a million times. They're going to call you from a different number every time, and it could very well be the same people, but their numbers stay active for maybe 20 minutes. So if I get a lot of phone calls from folks saying, "Hey, I just got scammed," or "I just got a scam call. Here's the number." I'm like, "Great. Now what?" So if I were to call that number back, it wouldn't be in service anymore, and so like I said, they cast their net very wide. So they'll make that same phone call to a couple of hundred people, and if they got one person, give them $1,000. That's a good day. They just made $1,000. So I don't even remember what wasn't a question, it was your story. So that's not uncommon to get the same call over and over and over. Sometimes they'll buy phone numbers in a certain area. So we'll get a rash of Social Security calls that go to Belchertown, and then we'll get a rash that go to Athol, and so they'll buy those numbers in bulk.
Who do they buy them?
I don't know. It's very creepy. It's almost like an underground sort of business where they sell. So that's why people who fall for scams get more scam calls, because your number and your name is now a hot item for all the other scammers. So they'll sell that to other scammers. So that's why the best thing to do if you get a call, just quietly hang up. Don't yell at them. As awesome as it is to yell at them and swear at them and say, I know what you're doing, the best thing to do is just make them think it's a dead number. Make them think there's nobody on the other end and it's a waste of their time. And that goes for everything. Sir?
I had a phone call about 2 weeks ago. It was a lady who said she was from Social Security, and she told me that my Social Security card was in trouble because somebody in Texas had been doing something with it. And I assumed it was a, well, she also said, if you want to hear more, press 1.
Oh, yeah.
I pressed 1,
oh, no.
and a guy came on and said that he was some kind of a person working for Social Security, and he said, "What's your Social Security number?"
If Social Security is going to call you with a problem with your number, shouldn't they have your number? Right.
Well, I pushed the hang up button.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Hang up, goodbye. That's what I want to hear. And the reason why they tell you not to press 1 is because that's just another way for them to know there's a person on the other end. So, oh, there's someone listening. I don't know who they are, but that's just another way for them to verify they're reaching a person. So, that. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all for sticking in. So was there another question? Okay. Thank you all for being here today. The full house was amazing. I really appreciate your interest. Just a quick few last words about LifePath. We are a nonprofit organization that serves older people, people with disabilities, and caregivers in Western and Central Massachusetts. We help people stay independent in their homes and communities. For example, we offer in-home services, Meals on Wheels, health insurance help, and much more. And of course, we also work on elder abuse, which you heard about today. We coordinate the right services for each person using a variety of programs and services. Services might be personal care, chore, meals, housing, transportation, emotional support, education, help managing medications, and more. And we work with people of all incomes. Some services are subsidized, or others are covered by insurance, while others are paid for privately, and a lot in between. So if you have folks that you're working with who could benefit from some of these services, please give us a call, speak to a resource consultant. And we also have some materials at the back, and the DA's office has a bunch of materials there as well, so please help yourself to those as you're leaving. Our next community learning session will be March 25th in the afternoon, and it's going to be getting started with Medicare and Social Security. So if you or someone you know is approaching the age of Medicare and Social Security, it might be helpful to get an introduction, and we have some experts here who are going to be able to offer that. Thank you for being here today.